Hey guys, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, but since I've never played a Dungeons and Dragons style game or the board game, I wanted to give this a little bit more time so I could actually get the feel of everything a lot better and make sure I understood certain parts a little bit more before I made a video, and I wanted to get a little bit further in the campaign before I made a video as well. I am currently on my second playthrough. This is my first playthrough that I'm actually logged into right now, which is because I'm going to be going over a lot more stuff on this playthrough, but I still haven't finished the campaign yet. So I am currently in the lower city. You can see here I'm at like Worms Crossing, lower city, central wall. Like that's how far I've gotten so far. So I'm assuming I still have, you know, a decent portion left to go. I'm maybe like middle-ish, I'm assuming, of Act 3. I might be wrong about that, but so I've gotten pretty far into the story, and I want to do this video on all of the good as well as all of the bad stuff I've experienced so far in this game. Now, again, since I've never played a Dungeons and Dragons style game, some of these things that I might say are bad actually might be part of how the style is supposed to be. So feel free to correct me in the comments or let me know if there's something I'm just misunderstanding about this style game. But I wanted to give my feedback on it and how much fun I've been having with the game. Overall, I highly recommend this game. All of the bad things I'm going to be pointing out don't counter all of the good things. There are way more good things that I've found in this game, and those good things are very strong foundationally compared to the bad things. I just wanted to make sure I put out the bad things as well, because a lot of people like to be biased and they like to say, well, this game is amazing, 10 out of 10, perfect game, couldn't be any better. Well, a perfect game is subjective. You know, what do you mean by perfect? Like, something will never be perfect. There's always going to be something to improve on. And I want to make sure I address those points as well, because we want games to be as good as they can be, right? I highly recommend this game. I absolutely love it. Again, I'm on my second playthrough. You can actually see here, I have 84 hours into the game so far, which to me, that's quite a lot. That's a massive amount of time investment into this game. Don't twist my words. Don't like listen to all the bad stuff I'm gonna say and think like, oh, he hates this game or something. No, that's not it at all. I recommend this game, but I want the game to be as good as it can be, and all future games to look at this and have something to improve on. So I want to start off with the bad stuff first, just to get that out of the way, and then go over the good stuff, because again, there's a lot more of them and they're more in depth. So I'll save that for the last part. So the first negative point is there's been a lot of bugs in this game. Now that being said, I've experienced a lot of other like AAA games that have had way more bugs than this game. Some of the bugs in this game have been pretty substantial though. Like for instance, I got trapped at the spoilers will be in this video too, so just so you know. I got trapped at the forge area in the Undercity, and I couldn't get out. So it's like I had to reload my previous save file in order to get across that. And I had to do that with a few different types of bugs that I encountered. There's just, you know, a lot of other passive bugs that I've encountered throughout the game, like certain spells not working. But nothing too groundbreaking. Nothing that wanted me to stop playing the game because this bug was like too oppressive or happened too frequently. It was more so like I encountered something, you know, I worked around it, and it probably didn't happen again. Kind of piggybacking off of that, this isn't the second point isn't necessarily a bug, but it's something that they're planning on changing, but it's pretty big.
Do you realize how huge this is?
And this is the main reason why I actually started my second playthrough. So as you can see here on the left side of my screen, I have a character here called Mara. This is actually my friend's character. Now, this is such a big deal because it can, to me, kind of ruin a playthrough in a way, because when a friend joins your party, they can't leave. There's no way to get them out of your party.
Get out of here!
It's not like a normal companion like Shadowheart or Karlach, where you can make them wait at camp and take someone else with. They stay in your party, and even if you try to kill them or something, they still stay in your party. So now you just have a fourth dead slot, and that might actually ruin a playthrough. So you have to be extremely careful. They're planning on changing this. I saw this on x.com, Twitter, whatever. that they are planning on changing this, but for now, I would be very, very careful with who you're planning on playing with. Only make sure that who you're going to be playing with will stick around throughout the whole playthrough. Otherwise, you're just going to have another random character, which it's not too big of a deal, but it kind of ruins some of the story, and you don't get to experience a lot more of the companion's story and whatnot. So just be careful with that. My third point is some fights are just way too annoying, and some of the mechanics are very oppressive. Spoiler alert, so in Moonrise Towers, when you go back there to do like the final fight there to kill Ketheric Thorm, I think his name is, that fight was so fucking annoying. It was the worst fight in the whole game. You have people using like the darkness, you have people that are on top of the balcony shooting you, you got people throwing like ice, grease, poison shit all over inside the darkness. They're using fear on you, making you drop your weapons. Then you pick up your weapon, you have to wait a turn to equip it back on. That fight in particular was very, very frustrating. Not just because it was like difficult, but because it was just so annoying. Now, there was only, I think, like 3 total fights where I kind of had that feeling, so it wasn't like game wide. But I feel like some of the effects could probably get toned down a little bit. Especially like the area of the darkness. I feel like that's very, very strong. Especially when it doesn't really apply to a lot of the enemies that you fight. It heavily applies to a lot of your companions.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
My fourth point is you can easily miss a lot of important story content and characters if you're either not exploring everything or you just so happen to like pass by the area. And even if you do explore everything, there's a chance, like what happened to me was I didn't get Karlach until I was already like in the middle of Act 2. And it was because I was like still in the middle of exploring everything, and then I came back to this area. I was like, you know, I'm gonna check over what's here, and it's like, oh, there's a fucking companion over here. You know, like a huge part of the story that connected and tied into so many other things there, like Daemon and Light's Chapel, or whatever it's called, in Act 2. There were so many like story elements I feel like I missed out on, and I was able to get some of them back, but I think with the dialogue options and that tied in with like the multiplayer issue I have, I think I missed out on a lot of dialogue. My next point is that the RNG in the game is very, very strong. Things can like just be very drastic between 2 different points, and this kind of goes into my next point too about save scumming. So what save scumming is that you like keep a bunch of saves. You basically save like any time an encounter happens, and so that way if it doesn't go the way that you planned, you can revert back to the old save, and you can basically control the situation and try to get the outcome that you want. And I don't like to play like that, but a lot of these situations are just so heavily RNG based that it really calls for it. And I wish those situations would kind of get toned down a little bit as well, to where it's not so like, man, if you get a bad dice roll here, you're fucked, or it's way more difficult than it would be if you just simply rolled a higher number on this one occurrence. Again, it's not something that happens all the time, but I have noticed it a few times, and it was just like, man, now it's like, why bother doing all this when I could just go back 10 seconds and roll a higher number? And I get it's for like the, you know, the RPG style of it. You don't want to do that, but when it's in your hands, you know, you kind of feel the power, and you can. I think the inventory management needs a little bit more polish. So there's so much like inventory, so many items in your inventory. Look how much shit I have here. These are all scrolls, by the way. And it feels like there's not enough options for you to like move stuff around, to mark stuff the way you want, to sell it, to understand how important it is for like future content. And so I end up having a bunch of like, it feels like useless shit in my bags. And then it's also very difficult to like move stuff to other characters. For instance, like if I'm in a fight, why, and I'm using like Shadowheart or something, and it's her turn, and I use an arrow, why can I drag the arrow over here and then use it, but I can't just like use my arrow and like see it pop up over here. So like if I do ranged attack, you can see all my arrows pop up. But if I swap over to Shadowheart and I use it, it's not there. But if I for some reason drag an arrow over here and then use it, oh look, it's there. It's like, why does that matter? Why can't I just see all of it? So that's kind of my point. It's just kind of annoying having to do that, like especially when you're trying to do a very specific set of attacks. And then this goes into the action bar organization. So why I've done this a few times now. I've tried to organize all of my buttons to be kind of like similar across all my characters and put my consumables, like what all the ones that I mostly use in the same spot, and it keeps getting reset. And it's very frustrating because like the way everything is just like organized by default doesn't make any sense. And so it just takes more time to like have to look through all of your abilities. And yeah, you kind of get used to it over time, but it's just still annoying when you're trying to find something specific and you just have to like, if I want to look for a scroll here, it's like, okay, well, items, scroll, where the fuck is it? You know, it just takes a lot more time than I think it should. My next point is some items feel intentionally placed. So when you're in like a city or something and you see an item and it's red when you hover over it and you have like the chest icon here and you can see that it's red, that means that if you loot that and someone in the city is watching you, you will like trigger a dialogue option with them or something, basically showing that you're doing some kind of hostile action. And there's been a lot of occasions where they have a shitload of these items like placed around an important NPC, and I've clicked a couple of them a few times, and luckily most of them haven't been like they just start attacking you. They've been like, hey, what the fuck are you doing?
What the f are you doing here?
But it's still like kind of annoying that there's like so many of these red items around one NPC that you have to click, and so you have to like really be careful about clicking them. It's a minor thing, but it's just kind of annoying. One thing I wish they would change that is very important, I think, to this game is that when you take a long rest, that's when a lot of these story dialogue options happen with your companions, like in the camp here and stuff. There's no notice that you need to do that. And so if you're just playing the game and you take less rests than you should be, you could potentially be missing out on some important dialogue options. And so I think it would be very helpful if they had like a notification, like maybe on the camp icon here, that's like, oh, hey, you should go to your camp because like someone needs to talk to you, or some, you know, your companions need to rest, but it's actually like a dialogue thing. You know, they could RPG the fuck out of it. I don't care. I think they need to add something in there to get you to go to camp to like actually progress you through these dialogue options. Because a lot of them are pretty important. I think my last bad point on the game is just the character creator. I feel like it's kind of underwhelming when it comes to the appearances side. I'm going to talk about the good part of the character creator when I get to the good side. But as far as like the appearances go, I feel like there's just not enough customization. There's like no sliders. There's like a few face options. There's a few body types. That's, you know, that's about it. It didn't really feel like it stood out to me a lot as a character creator. It's not that big of a deal to me, someone like me. I don't really care about how the games even in general look. I care about the gameplay. You know, just the point I thought I'd bring up because I just felt it was lackluster. Now, the good stuff. There's a lot of it. So, the story, obviously, the story's very cool. It's very unique, very original. There's a shitload of stuff in the story. The whole campaign, even if you just played the campaign by itself, again, I'm at like 85 hours, and I've barely started my second playthrough. And so the whole campaign for me, with exploring everything, probably would take about 80 hours, because again, I haven't even finished the campaign on this playthrough, my first playthrough. So massive story, lots of juicy details, lots of fun. I just thought it was really good. And that leads into the next point, where the choices that you can make and the divergences in the story that can happen almost feel like infinite. There's so much that can change in the game that when I compare it to like my friends and stuff that are playing the game and they're making like pretty similar options that I am, and I see their dialogue and like their whole story is completely different than mine, it's kind of mind-blowing, honestly, how much they were able to alter the story and how many like voice options that actually added into all these small, like even these small details. Like it felt like so much polish was put into the dialogue and the story and just the little things that can happen. And for example, there's one small spoiler, but it's like a side adventure. There's an area south of the Goblin Camp in the first act where there's like this swampy area and there's like this witch there. And when I was watching my friend play, and he encountered like these two people who have this encounter with this witch, and he's going through all these dialogue options. They go back to the witch's hut, and then he goes through a bunch of dialogue options and ends up fighting her. I didn't get there yet, and so I went through like the Goblin Camp and the temple, and I ended up coming out, and I found some portal somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but it took me behind the witch's hut, and I ended up encountering the witch first. And when I went back up to the area where he encountered the two NPCs that were talking to the witch, they were dead for me. And I didn't choose any major story plots that were different from him, so the only thing that factored into that was the time at which I encountered them in the story. And I just thought that was so crazy that like you could just take longer to get to a side adventure, and the whole thing could be completely different just because of the time. And that to me was like, it was so cool because it really adds so much replayability into a game. You can go there first, you can go there later, you can not go there at all. But like there's so many different routes you could take. That's just one side adventure. What about all these other side adventures? You know, what happens when you get to them later in the story or when you get to them first? And I just think it's really cool how much they just branch out into all these different things that can happen. The next one is the gameplay and freedom and the variety in how to approach fights. So this has been super fucking fun to me. How you could see a group of enemies up ahead and you can literally just like sneak up on them. You can spread out your characters. You can try to snipe them down first. Environmental shit, so you can like try to explode them off the cliff or just push them. You could just run in with fucking swords and hammers and try to beat the shit out of them. There's just so many different like ways to approach a fight that I think it really makes the gameplay fun because you get the freedom of how you want to engage. I mean, you could like CC some guys, you could slow them, get them to trip, and it's just super cool. So there's a good example I have for this, which is when you're in like the Dwarven city where all the lava is and shit. They were pissing me off. These fucking dwarves pissed me off so bad. Just the way they would like talk to me, that I ended up pushing the one leader, the female leader that's like yelling at the gnomes. I threw her ass in the lava. I just ran up, I pushed her in the lava. The male leader turns around, looks at me, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? I push his ass in the lava with another character, and then the whole city's like aggroed on top of me. I'm just killing all of them. I end up killing all of them. I'm like super proud. I'm like, yeah, fuck you guys. You don't get to talk to me the way that you did. It's just crazy like how much just one small decision can affect such a big part of the game, because I ended up having to kill everybody in the city. I could have just not done that, but I chose to do it, and I just thought it was so fun and just super cool. My next point is this game has a lot of replayability. So I actually kind of already talked about this a bit, but this goes back to like the RNG I was talking about on the bad side. So where there's a lot of bad stuff with the RNG, there's a lot of good stuff as well. Because of that RNG, because things can be altered so easily, you know, with a simple dice roll, or maybe you click something too late and then someone caught you, you know, sneaking around or something. There's so many things that can happen that it really opens up the game to multiple playthroughs and a lot more time investment in the game, because you just want to get to explore, you want different dialogue options, or you just want a different outcome in the game. And I think that's really cool. And they allow this through multiple ways. They allow it through the dice rolling, the dialogue options, the Illithid stuff. Like up here, you can see I have the Illithid powers. You could choose not to take this if you don't want to. It's cool because I love seeing games do that. My next point is the side adventures actually feel like they're worth doing. So in most games you have side quests and they just feel like this dauntless task that you're just like, oh, go kill 8 boars, you know, and you go kill 8 boars, you come back, you turn it in. The side adventures here, they have their own story associated with them. And when you actually pay attention to them and like follow through, and you can see how they change, see how your options affect things, find secrets, it feels like it really comes together as a cohesive piece. And these side adventures feel like their own section of the story that's completely unrelated. And I think overall, it gives the whole story of like Baldur's Gate just it makes it feel so much more immersive, wide, and like broad. And so you get to experience a whole bunch of different like emotions and gameplay and styles of doing things and themes, and it's just really cool to see all of this in just side adventures. That's why I like playing the whole game and exploring everything. And that goes in my next point, is that exploring actually feels rewarding. When you explore, you encounter secrets, extra dialogue options, you can find books for extra lore and story. And so, like, in this game, when you explore things, you feel rewarded for your time spent doing that. It doesn't feel like you're just running around because you have to. The next point is that there's a lot of content. So again, I'm at 85 hours of playing, and I still haven't beat the campaign. I plan on playing this game for quite a bit longer. I'm having a lot of fun with it right now. And I don't think anyone could say in their right mind that this game has a lack of content. I think even if you literally just barreled through the campaign, you'd be fighting through a lot of stuff for a while. And that's because the gameplay is just so engaging, and I really love that. My next good point is obviously a more well-known one, is that there's no microtransactions. They released this game as a feature complete game, so everything's already done, everything's solid. You know, they have their hot fixes and bug fixes, whatnot. But they don't have any microtransactions or like store, shop, whatever that you could spend real money on. It's you play the game, you get shit in the game. There's no external influence in how you can approach it.
That's impossible!
So now getting back to the character creator, the thing that I do like about the character creation is that there's a lot more in-depth creation with like the skills, the background of your character. You know, your race plays a huge part into that because you get all the different passive bonuses and stuff, and you can pick out your class and like kind of adapt everything around that. That's what I tend to spend most of my time on, is like trying to like cohesively make a character that makes sense with like their abilities and their passives and stuff, and like the class abilities. I spend more time doing that than I actually did on like the appearance of my character. I really commend that, and I think that's really cool. And I also think it's kind of cool that they allow you the option of playing an origin character, because I feel like that might also open up a lot more dialogue options, since you can have basically 4 companions together rather than 3 in your custom character. My next point, camp dynamics continuously improve and feel more engaging. So like, as you can see here, I have like Withers, I have Scratch here somewhere. There he is running around, little old puppers. I got Dame Aelin here. I got Jaheira because, spoiler, I saved her at Moonrise Towers, and I think that's how I unlocked her. I got this little kid here with his dog, or is that a cat? I think it's a fucking cat. So you can see there's like a lot of things that you can kind of like unlock for your camp. Well, not things really, but mostly people and animals. And I think that's cool too, because you can also see how your camp evolves differently between playthroughs, and like how your decisions affect stuff, or how good you played. Like again, if I didn't save her, if I didn't save Jaheira in that fight at Moonrise Towers, I don't think I would have her, because she'd be dead. Unless she gets like resurrected or something in the story. And she wouldn't be there. And a whole lot of dialogue options happen between Jaheira, Dame Aelin, and Shadowheart. And it's like a huge part of her story. I think that's just so cool how you can actually go around your camp, and like the more people you unlock and save for your camp, you could just talk to more, and it feels more like more welcoming. I don't know how else to put it, but I think it's really cool that you can like grow your camp differently. So my next point is that the environment feels unique, immersive, and different for different characters. Like again, a lot of like these race passives and the class passives and stuff allow you to interact with things in the environment differently. Like for instance, if you play like a rogue or an archer or something, or a druid, you're gonna have a little bit more understanding with like the nature, the sleight of hands, the perspectives, those types of dice rolls. And so you're going to be able to unlock and see secrets and get better rolls on certain options better than you would if you played a different class. And vice versa, those classes are going to be better in certain areas and have better dice rolls than you would in those areas. And so just having those higher dice rolls plays into that whole RNG aspect of how it unlocks a huge breadth of options for you to explore between your different playthroughs. My next point is that there's a lot of secrets and extra lore story through interactables and books. So like as you're walking around, you can find just random clickable things. If I just hold down my button here, you can see that you could look at a whole bunch of interactable objects. It doesn't show you everything. And there's a lot of shit you can interact with this in the game. It's actually insane how many things you can click and loot and pick up and throw, whatever. And a lot of these things you get are books, and the books have a lot of lore just within themselves. In fact, there's an achievement on Steam for you reading, like I think it's like 100 books or something. And you unlock actually more dialogue options, I've noticed, when you read certain books. I think they have to be pretty important ones, like rare ones, but I've noticed that some books I've read have actually unlocked certain dialogue options with the companions. And just the amount of secrets you can uncover too, and again, this is going to depend on your character's customization and their dice rolls. When you're like just running around and exploring, you know, sometimes your character will see something, especially with perspective. I just think that's really cool that you can, you know, you can counter different lore and secrets and stuff by just having a different character. My next point is the difficulty scaling feels pretty good. So this character is currently on the lowest difficulty, and that's because I've never played a Dungeons and Dragons type game, and I know this is a turn-based game, and so I wanted to have fun. So I picked the lowest difficulty because I didn't want to struggle, and I wanted to learn the game. And I figured if I liked it enough and I was having a lot of fun, I'd probably play it again anyways, in which I did. And so my second playthrough that I'm doing right now is on the medium difficulty. And I don't know if I'll ever get to the highest one, because the medium one is actually pretty fucking difficult. I don't know if it's just because I picked a druid. I don't know what it is with druids in games, but they seem to be, I don't know, just underperforming, I would say. But I have to definitely approach these fights differently. Not only because the difficulty, but because the class that I'm playing is different. And it doesn't play the same as this class does. And so again, I have to approach these fights differently. I have to like shapeshift, and I have to use these forms, and I have to go in melee combat more, whereas this is a ranger. And so he can kind of stay back and, you know, use his bow a bit more. My second to last point is that all items seem to have a purpose and aren't added just because. So when you're like scrolling through here and you look at all of these items, like they all seem to have a purpose. Like if I open up my camp supply pack here, like yeah, all these are basically the same thing, but I can just send them into camp and that doesn't even really matter. And I have a whole separate bag for them anyways. Same thing with your alchemy pouch, basically the same thing. But then you get on into all these potions. You have like Oil of Sharpness, where you gain bonus damage to attack rolls and overcome resistances. You have Saving Throw, or become poisoned and fall asleep. You can gain additional spell slots. And like all of these feel like they have some niche purpose. Even if they're not like the most popular ones, it feels like there is a situation in which you could actually use this. But the problem is, because there's so many, it's hard to remember what you have and what you should or should not use. And so that's been actually the more difficult thing, is actually remembering like, oh shit, I could actually use this in this situation, rather than, oh man, I just got too much shit. Because again, like your inventory is pretty like infinite. I have a lot of stuff. The hardest thing is just keeping my weight capacity down. So if you have some way of increasing that, then it'd actually be better. But I mean, look at all these scrolls too. You have like Arcane Lock. You got Scroll of Banishment, Bestow Curse, Blight, Blindness. You know, I have literally rows and rows and rows of these scrolls, and each one just seems like it has a very good purpose in the game. The only thing I wish they would do better is explaining that this is an item that has a purpose in the game, rather than like, oh, you should just sell this. Because I just don't know like which items I have to keep, and so I have to like send a lot of things back to the camp chest. And when you open up the camp chest, it's not very big. I don't know if there's like a, oh wait, so like when you go to the camp chest, you could see like you could just have so much shit in here. This is just one of my chests. I actually have 2 chests because again, the multiplayer issue that I'm having. So if I go to my other chest here, you could like look how tiny the bar is. A lot of it's camp supplies. I've been sending all of my books here. I have a lot of fucking books. I have tons and tons of gems and ingots, and like I have like this fucking teddy bear, owl stuff, owl bear. So you can see I have a lot of shit in my bag, and trying to find something that you put in there is kind of difficult. So I just wish they would like tell you if you need this or not, or if you could just sell it. And my last good point here, the reason I save this for last is because it's kind of got a bad point associated with it. The tadpole choices, so like the Illithid powers up here, they're really cool. You can see there's a lot of abilities and passives that you can get from having these Illithid tadpoles. The problem though is that you can completely opt out of doing this, which makes sense story-wise. It just kind of sucks that like the good route, the route that I think most people are going to take, completely opts out of this whole Illithid power UI system. And it's really unfortunate, I think, because a lot of this stuff is really cool. And, you know, some of it has like a kiss curse kind of thing, or like this one, your attacks deal additional damage, but you take additional damage. Or like the repulsor, and like you push everyone back, including your allies. So it's cool, but it kind of sucks at the same time, because unless you do like a whole separate playthrough that's like designed around becoming one of these mind flayers and using all these Illithid powers, it feels like it's not worth it. And then when you don't take it, it feels worse because you're missing out on some cool powers. I wish there was like a better balance between the two. I don't know how they would approach that. Maybe you guys don't think it's a problem, but I just wish it was something that would change. So, overall, guys, again, very, very good fucking game. I love this game. Had a lot of fun with it. The last time I played a Baldur's Gate game was actually Baldur's Gate 2, Dark Alliance. And that was more of like an ARPG style. I'm not really a fan of turn-based games. I actually hate turn-based games. The last turn-based game I played, I think, was Chrono Cross back on the PlayStation. So you can tell I don't really like them because I haven't played one in so long. But this game just feels very good to play. The gameplay is very good. The decisions you can make are very good. Everything about it, you know, only positive things to say. I would highly recommend anyone to play this. At least give it a shot. Pay attention to the story. The story is really cool and interesting. And that's also something that I don't do very often, is pay attention to story in games. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know if there's something I missed, or if there's something again that I'm misunderstanding, because I haven't played a Dungeons and Dragons style game or board game. And so again, some of these things I'm talking about just might not be applicable, but I don't know. Also, be sure to follow my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/metallurgy. I haven't been streaming very often, but I'm hoping to make a return sometime soon. Thanks for the support, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.